So what I wanted to start with is, so I want to go back to, we'll get to the part about, you launching your business earlier this year. That's the,
Yep.
that's the main part. But what I want to start us with is what came before that. What was George, what was George like at school? Did you always know you were going to go in and start your own business? So that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, always been interested in starting my own business. So left school at 16, went to college for 2 months, decided education wasn't the way I wanted to go. So I thought I'd go into work, did factory jobs, bit of tiling, bricklaying. I did pretty much everything when I was like between 16 and 18. Got to 18 and I wouldn't say lost, but I was a bit like, what do I go into? Didn't really know. I've always kind of like played football, been into sport, been quite social, but I just really didn't have a field that I wanted to go into. So sat down with my old man, who's quite a big mentor to me, and I'm very close to my old man. And we looked at a couple of options. So he went into the army when he was 18, for example. So he kind of floated that onto me. I must admit, I wasn't too keen on the idea of going into the army. It would have been a good experience. And then the second option, which he also did when he was younger, was to potentially go traveling. And we looked at both options, and there was kind of no push to do it, but I really had nothing else at the time that I knew that I wanted to fall into. So when I was 18, booked a one-way flight to Australia, went out there for 12 months, and probably the best decision I've ever made, because at the time I really was, like I say, a little bit lost, really didn't know what I wanted to do, as most 18-year-olds do, I think, until you're kind of 21-ish and above. Some people don't know what they want to do right up until much older ages. So I went there, did 12 months, did a bit of Asia as well, came back at 19, 20, and just a whole new person, really. Definitely changed me, met loads of new people. I was probably one of the younger people out of like the crowds of people I was speaking to. Most of the people were like 25 plus, really. So speaking with those who have had a little bit more experience, and it definitely helped me. And I came back and had a bit more of a direction, I suppose. So from that, it allowed me to be a little bit more social. I was always good at speaking with different people from different walks of life, and I thought, why not get into a sales job, because that's essentially what it is. So I fell into property from there, really. So actually an ex-girlfriend at the time, her mum worked for a paper, saw a job opportunity in an estate agent that came up in Leamington Spa for a company called Newman's, who I work actually a couple of doors down from now. Got into there, and that's how it kind of came about, how I got into property, really.
Did you, like, when you come back from Australia, did you look at like any of the industries, or was this sort of the main one?
In fact, I worked at a solicitor's firm for a little while, but that was never for me. But that was like on the phones. It was actually like a debt collection agency, so it was a bit too aggressive for me. But
too aggressive, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a real good experience, obviously, speaking to different people. I looked at recruitment, car sales, but I've always been interested in properties. I've kind of been around people that have developed properties and things like that. So I've always been interested in that side of things. Always wanted to get into the property investment side of things eventually. So I thought that'd be a good door into it. That's kind of where it went from there, really.
Okay. So also what I noticed as well is, so we'll get to House Up and House Up, because that's the last big one that you were quite in. But before that, because you were a couple of firms before that, what was the experience like then? So what was the experience for like George, he's sort of never, he hasn't done this before. He's gone into sort of a new industry, and also quite young as well, I might add, because usually some people go to, the generic thing now is you see people go to uni, then by like 22, 23, they're starting that. But you're starting that at like 19, 20, which is a little bit younger. What was that like? Was there...
Yeah, it was exactly like you said there, really. All my colleagues were 25 and above, very similar to when I was traveling. So I wasn't nervous around them, because, I've been around people like that. But they were more experienced. They'd been there for 3 or 4 years. So I would say I was very, very fortunate. Back then, it was very much like to get a promotion in that industry, or to be in a certain level within that industry, you had to have earned that. And I was kind of the lowest of the pecking order, I suppose. So I learned some very, very good estate agents with every company that I've been with. So it was quite nerve-wracking, because like I was going in, I didn't know any of the terminology and things like that. So I was a bit of a sponge, really. I just took it all in and kind of went from there as such. So a little bit nerve-wracking, but I've been around loads of different companies now and seen loads of different styles. So
it's picking up, I suppose, from that. What I always say, to that, going into like an industry younger, you're not you pick up a lot of things. You learn. You have to do every job, so you learn everything. So what I'm starting to sort of see with that, because now I've had younger people who haven't gone the traditional route to university, where they start younger with me. Now we're in sort of year 5. They're older. They've done every single job in the business. Now they know exactly what it is they're supposed to be doing. So usually people think, oh, we'll pluck someone out of uni, but I also think that's a good route to go. And like you're saying, you're seeing a lot of people going into industries younger, learning their trade, then mid to late 20s, they're sort of doing really well.
Oh, so definitely helps. And then when I get to a management kind of role, and then now I'm owning my own business, I can turn around to someone who started as a trainee, and I can say, look, I can relate to that. I did that 8 years ago. I know exactly what where you're coming from. And that. So yeah, definitely, I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. So what made because obviously Allsopp, that's a big firm. Like I've seen they've got offices all around the world and things like that. What prompted the move to there then?
So from after Newman's, I moved down south. So I worked in a company based down south, Surrey, Berkshire, Hampshire, that sort of area, just around on the outskirts of London, really. So I worked down there for 2 years, went down as an estate agent. I was very lucky to work with some very, very good agents down there. They were voted kind of best agents in the southeast at the time. There was 11 branches in total, so it was a big firm. But I worked in a city centre office, and I learned an awful lot. I was an estate agent for 12 months, and then for the remaining 12 months, I went into a property investors network. So effectively what my job role was to source below market value properties for investors, give advice on different investment strategies and how to produce the best yields on properties and things like that. So that was another angle that I come from, which has really, really helped me. And I'm really the people that I work with.
So what do you find then? So for people who don't know, so what's the difference between your small local estate agents who are just based, in one area, and then to like you were saying, people, some that have got branches across the whole of England who may be bigger. What's the difference working in that environment?
I think obviously they're a little bit more aggressive. The bigger the agent, they're a little bit more aggressive. They have more of that corporate environment, so it's very much you've got your targets, you have to hit them, and they have different commission structures and things like that. And I did enjoy working in that environment at the time. Coming in back to Leamington Spa when I joined Allsopp and Allsopp, although they have kind of corporate ethics because they're a worldwide company and very high targets and things like that to get the best out of the company and the best out of the staff. I worked in an independent branch within the Midlands. So we kind of had the best of both worlds, almost like a hybrid agent. So the independent, as in you could walk into the branch, you could speak to someone who's a bit more of a personable touch. And that's what I liked about Allsopp and Allsopp, really. It was a bit of a hybrid agent where you could do kind of the best of both. It was proactive agent, but it had that personal touch.
I find that's a big thing. The code in terms of the culture of the business, I find that's a big thing. But I also found it has to come from the owners to the managers to sort of the rest of the staff. What's the difference in you talked about sort of the bigger they are, the more aggressive. Was that the only sort of difference in cultures? Was it because what I find is usually the bigger companies, it's more of a, like say my brother works in recruitment for a big firm. The way they're set up like quite robotic, but then I use some recruiters and they're more it's generic, but they're a bit more personalized because obviously they're dealing with less volume.
This is it, and I agree with you. When I came into work at Allsopp and Allsopp, there was some ways, and I would say things on the phone, and I would my processes were so robotic. And the owner here and the managers that I worked for as I came in, they kind of ironed that out a little bit, because I always say in anything in sales, you need to be a chameleon. You need to be able to adapt to different people, speak to different people from all walks of life. And I think with the corporate environment, it is very, very scripted. If you go to a lot of these corporate environments, it's very, very scripted. And you could be speaking to a slightly older client and you need to say it a certain way, or a slightly younger client, or from a different area, different background and things like that. And that's what you need to do. You need to be relatable. And that's why I got into this industry. I like to think I can do that. But I think the corporate environment, it is a little bit robotic compared to the independent, where, it's a little bit more personal, a little bit more friendly. And you have to be the person. And all the companies I work for, and I'll say it with my company as well, that client doesn't buy the brand, they buy the person. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They always want that person. So you have to be adjustable, I suppose.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think in industries where you're selling people on something, being personable, having that interaction, that does really, really help. I think that, that side of it really, really helps. So going in terms of, we talked about culture. What was it like going into managing? So like, you were talking previously about working your way up. What's it like for you going into managing? Because then obviously you've spent time in different businesses and things like that. You've learned your trade, you learned the role. What's it like going to managing a group?
Yeah, it's quite daunting. So I was the youngest ever manager in Allsop and Allsop UK. So that was, I think I was 23, 24 when I took on a branch manager role. I had staff who were like mid-30s. So at first I was like, how am I going to tell these lot to in the office at the end of the day and stuff like that. So it's a little bit daunting, but I always enjoyed it. I think, I didn't necessarily have the most experience in the office, but I knew how to run an office and get results. Something I've always said is I want to make the office as fun as an environment as it can be. I want everyone to come to work and enjoy it as well. So I'd always have incentives and make sure it's not mundane and the same day by day. So I was good at Friday beers and that sort of thing.
Of course.
So I enjoyed management. Sometimes
I suppose that it's good to have that, but you don't need it, but it's good to have that for when you go into your own business. Because how I look at managing, like for me, before I sort of came up with my ventures, I work with obviously my mom who's in the same, the same sort of industry. I work my way up, and then when you get to being a manager, it semi-prepares you for being a business owner because you're in the same industry, but the responsibility of the business isn't you. You're managing the day to day. I think that side of it's really, really helpful. For me, it was one of the big things because, like you say, especially starting young, because then you figure out. Like for me, my big struggle was working out how to motivate different personalities. Like because you get some people don't respond to being scolded. Some people need a bit of handhold. They need you to to really pay attention to them. Some people need a challenge. So how do you figure that out? Like how do you gauge?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'd have members of staff. You need to put your arm around them, make sure they're okay, and really kind of be calm with them and that sort of thing. You'd also have members of staff that you could just give grief to all day and they would react off the back of that. Obviously you'd make a bit of fun out of it as well, but you literally got to manage people very similar to what I said with the clients. You've got to be a chameleon with everyone that you speak to. You have to be to diversify with different people, and that includes members of staff as well. So, and I think that's what I did struggle with at first, because I came from, like I say, that very aggressive company down south, which I really am grateful for now, because it made me a much better agent and a businessman. But where you would get pelters all day long, where's your target? So I came into this office doing that as a member of staff at first, and then managing the office like that. But then I soon realised we're in an independent environment. You've got to treat people differently. So that was quite a good learning curve for me, really. But
so how many years did you spend there at Allsop?
I was there 4 years total. Yeah, 4 years total.
So that's quite a bit. So
quite a long time.
When did you sort of, because obviously you said earlier you launched your business at the top, like pretty much at the start of COVID. When did you when did you start? How many years in did you start thinking, okay, the industry is obviously for you. You've realised that. When did you start thinking I can make my own business?
I'll be honest. From the day I started in property 8 years ago, I knew that I'd do it by myself. My old man's a businessman, and I've always had that kind of interest in business. I knew that I would have to set up my own business eventually to get kind of my goals on what I want to achieve. 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I did my CMAP exams, which allowed me to be a mortgage advisor. So I was working for Allsop and Allsop, but also working as a self-employed mortgage advisor. So I was working under a brand as a self-employed mortgage advisor, and I got a taste for the self-employed world. Obviously, I was thankfully still employed at the time, but the mortgage route is where I wanted to go.
You got to try it out and see, okay, this is maybe the little niche I can go into.
Yeah, exactly. And I knew I'd do something in property, whether it would be the property investment, which, like I said, I did a bit of that, whether it would be estate agency. And then I did my mortgage exams, and I thought, I think this is the way I want to go now. So got some more experience under my belt. And then I just thought this year, I went away at Christmas, did 4 weeks, go see my brother in Australia. and you get a lot of time to reflect. And I thought this year could be a good time. Left it until kind of Q2 of the year, and then I thought, this is the right time. Lockdown gave me a lot of time to prepare the
kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, exactly, as I think a lot of people have. I think there's going to be some real positives to come out of this year in terms of productivity for everyone. So yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned there, like, where do you think sort of the entrepreneurial background comes from? Because I don't think many people at 19, 20 have a vision to think, I'm going to go and be a project for a couple of years, then I'm going to do this. Where do you think that comes from, that entrepreneurial, background?
I think, my old man, I have a lot to thank for that. Definitely. My mom and dad are big mentors to me. They've just done very, very well. They've got a few different businesses now. Not always had everything. They've worked very, very hard for it. I mean, my old man did say when I was 16, I worked for him for a few days. He actually sacked me when I was 16 because I was...
Wait, okay, we got again. So why did he sack you?
I think so. There was one time I turned up very, very late. I had a little moped at the time, and I turned up very, very late. He said, "Don't even bother," because obviously if the boss's son comes in and all the other staff see, then it doesn't look too good.
Yeah. In terms of when you think to yourself, so this year I'm going to start my business. What things did you have to consider? Was it, for me, when I was starting up, I thought I had to consider like location, recruitment, advertising, all that stuff. What things did you have to think? Okay, I've got the idea, but I need to put this, and this in place.
So the great thing is with my industry, from a mortgage perspective, it can be worked remotely. So all you need is a laptop. That's literally all you need, and a client base. So I was quite thankful, obviously, with the industry experience that I've got, that I would already have the leads. The leads are the main thing. So I need to make sure that I've got a guaranteed amount of leads. So I'm actually sat in the Allsop and Allsop office today. So I still do business with Allsop and Allsop. They've got 3 local offices in the Midlands. I've got offices in Birmingham, Stratford-on-Avon. I've got one down in London, Manchester. So I'm basically all over the country. And these foundations I kind of lay very initially before I took it on, because I thought I need those guaranteed leads first before I take this jump, because it'll be short going self-employed. Being a mortgage broker and setting up a new firm, it's very highly regulated. We're regulated by the FCA, so you then have to go through those hoops. So that was the next step. So that took me 3 months to do, to get signed off by the FCA, all sorts of paperwork that I needed to go through. And then I just sorted out all the systems and things like that. But like I say, very fortunate that we can work remotely. The main thing for me was making sure that those leads were guaranteed, because from going with a company that are very established and they're going to feed me with leads, and I can be a little bit more reactive, and I have to be proactive. And thankfully I'm in an industry where I've got a lot of people that I've kind of met over the years.
How did you because what you mentioned there that I caught was, so you still in a sense work with Allsop and Allsop, like you work partner with them?
Work with, so basically what they do, so I don't work for them at all, but when I left, I said, look, this is what I'm going to be doing, but we could still do business together. I could still kind of sit in a couple of the offices and you could pass me leads across. So obviously they would register a buyer to buy a property. Obviously most people will buy with a mortgage. They would refer that buyer across, most buyers across, and then my company would kind of...
So how do you build that relationship? Because to me, just thinking, if an employee comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm going to quit, I'm going to set up on my own," a lot of people can get threatened by that, or they can think, I'll spend time training this person, now they're leaving. How do you maintain that relationship? And so you can work together.
I mean, I'm very lucky to have worked with Carl Lewis, who own the brand, and they've put a lot of trust into me, like I say, promoting me to a manager at such a young age and things like that. And like to think there's more than just a business relationship. We became kind of friends through it as well, which is good. They obviously live out in Dubai, so I don't see them too much now. They live in the HQ out in Dubai, but yeah, I just think they we've worked well together. We achieved record-breaking figures in the Leamington office the year before, which obviously I'd ran. And a few years in a row, actually, our revenue was higher than ever, and since I'd been running the branch. So I think they knew there was an opportunity there. They were missing a mortgage advisor at the time. They weren't working with the company. So I said, look, I'm going to be leaving. This is the opportunity, but we could still work together. And basically, they'll pass me leads across, and I'll there's a...
I suppose that's that's a good way, because you maintain the relationship. and then they know they can trust you then because
Yeah, exactly.
they've worked, they've worked with you, so they know, okay, he's good at this job, so we can test it out, and then it's a partnership on both sides, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was a bit of a risk. I thought we could always try to kind of work it out and have that relationship. It was a bit of a risk, but like I said, and a couple of people were like, "Are you sure you want to do this now?" And I think for me is I'd already teed up those guaranteed leads from estate agents and things like that, just from people that I know in the industry. So
just with that, because one of the things I want to talk about was actually before we were starting your business in COVID, because that's a risk. That's a risk of at the time it happened, because obviously you laid the foundations down, but then COVID hits. Did you, going from a big firm where you're quite highly, you're highly thought of, to then going out shipping out on your own, in the middle of the pandemic? Did you think, oh, should I kick this down, a couple months down the line?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, mate. Few sleepless nights towards the as the time I was launching, 100%, because I was like, is this the right time? I live on my own. I've got my own mortgage, so it is a little bit daunting. So yeah, it definitely kind of crossed my mind. But I have got Carl actually, who runs A&A. I've got him to thank a little bit for that. Obviously, I'd given my notice at the time, and also, like I say, my old man, they're kind of two big mentors to me. But I'd given my notice at the time, and I said, do you think it is the right time to my old man? And he was like, no better time. And then when I'd given my notice, Carl had turned around and said, look, there's no better time. And the reason that is, as soon as anything like this comes about, and if there's ever a doubt in the market, I think people that, give it a go and really, grab it as much as they can, I think they're going to thrive a little bit more. There's less competition coming to the market. So, and it's a time to reflect and learn. And I've been quite thankful with, like I say, the way the property market has gone this year. It's been the busiest I've ever known it, with government incentives on the free stamp duty and things like that. So I've been very lucky with how it's panned out, really. When it first happened, I was like, oh no, this could be a bit of a nightmare, because the property industry literally stopped, couldn't do viewings, valuations or anything like that. But been quite lucky with the way it's panned out, really. So
yeah, I think I was talking to sort of an old gentleman I know who owns a company, and he was saying to me, in this pandemic, there'll be winners and there'll be losers. There's industries that are suffered. So your retail, hospitality, they've suffered, but there'll be other industries that are booming. And if you place yourself in one of those, you can, like you can say, you can do really well. You can do really well from it. And like I was sort of saying earlier, I know a couple of people who work in, mortgage advisors and things like that. They've said this has been the biggest year of their career that they've seen. And my immediate thing is, through COVID, are people still buying homes? And they said, it's through the roof.
Yeah, it's been quite overwhelming. I really didn't expect it. Like I say, as soon as it hit, I was like, oh no. But yeah, it's been really, really good. Just got to ride the wave as long as I can.
Yeah, I got to ride the wave, haven't you?
Yeah, so exactly.
The next sort of part is, what's the big difference now in going from being an employee, manager, but working under a branch, but now it's your business, it's your baby. What's the difference in that?
The thing I've struggled with most, I would say, is obviously being in a sales environment and managing a team. You celebrate your successes together. Like in a football team, you celebrate your successes together. If you have a bad month, you put it behind you, you move on, whatever. And with me, it's been me in my living room a lot of the time, just me. So like, I'll have like a good month or whatever, I'm like patting myself on the back. So I found that's odd, because I've managed like a team of 6 for like 2 or 3 years, and we're all like a real close knit.
I've
just expanded my team though, so obviously a good friend of yours, my brother's just come on, so he's actually just he's just started working for me, kind of learning the ropes and everything. We haven't fallen out yet, so
give it time.
But he's come on, he's good as gold, he's a sharp lad, so he'll be fine. I've got another chap as well, he's just actually doing his exams to become a mortgage broker now. So there'll be a team of 3 as of next year. I think what we'll probably look at doing is like a half board office somewhere where we're in 2 days a week, and then we work remotely 3 days, just because that team environment, I think, is quite important.
It's quite important, to create. Okay, so is there because I remember before when I was just managing, I just had to manage the day-to-day stuff, make sure stuff was done, manage my team. Now is it more added pressure, because you got to look at things like managing finances, overhead, things like that, doing the hiring and plotting a direction for the business? Is that more? Because, like I said, as a manager, you're seeing the big picture, but you're seeing the limited picture. but as the business owner, the managing director, you've got to see it all. What's that change been like?
Well, this is why I've hired so soon, and some people have said, why are you hiring in your first year of trading? But the thing is, for me, I want to push this business as quickly as I possibly can and as efficiently as we can. And for me at the moment, I'm writing business. I'm at the front. I'm the face of the business, which is great. And I love speaking with clients, but I can't push that business. If I'm doing 5-6 appointments a day, I can't push that business forward. So this is why I've hired people now. So almost to delegate as such, and then we can kind of push it on from there, really. Because for me, I can't then concentrate on that Friday, getting an advertising campaign out and things like that, and plotting my P&L and all sorts like that. So I think the hiring staff, although it's a very, very uncertain time, we've got the capacity to do it at the moment, and that will allow me to kick the business to the next level.
I think that's a big thing, because what you said there, I really agree with, in terms of to actually push the business forward, you do need to build a team. Absolutely, like for me, quite early on, I realized you can't do everything. Quite early on, when the business was smaller, I was involved in everything. I'd check everything out. But as you grow volume, you do need to add a structure. Because what I find is, as sort of like the managing director, you can't be looking at individual things. You can monitor, like check up on stuff, but you can't be doing individual things. You need to see sort of the whole picture. So I do see that. If you want, I do think that's a big thing. If you want to grow it. So first off, tell us what can I come into you, to yourself? What service can you offer me?
So we're a whole of market mortgage service, so that's quite big. So we pay a little bit extra to make sure we get exclusive deals through the bank. So in comparison to going in and speaking to a bank, you're going to be limited to the products that you can get access to. Also, getting in to see a bank alone is very, very difficult. You're probably waiting 3 or 4 weeks, where we're available 8 till 8, Monday to Sunday. So we're literally available all the time, 7 days a week. So I think that is a main thing. I mean, the service standards that you're going to receive for an independent company like yourself is huge, but having that whole of market presence is so important. Firstly, to be able to get the best deals on the market for our clients, but also if there's any uniqueness, say if we've got a self-employed member of staff or something like that, and they've only got 1 year's worth of trading accounts, then we can always try and make it fit, because we've got the access to those lenders. So I'd say that's the kind of main USP, really. But like I said at the start, I think people buy people, and the service that we can offer people and the advice that we can give is second to none. So yeah.
Okay, that's good then. So if I was shopping for a mortgage, and I was looking at a big firm, what would you say? What would your selling point to me be, and say, okay, come with me because of this reason? What's your product that you think you can provide that I can't get from one of the big firms?
Again, I would say service standards. Very, very similar to what I said there with the estate agency, having that independent versus corporate approach. The corporates, they're registering thousands of buyers every day and thousands of people looking for mortgages every day. We're registering 8-10 people looking for mortgages every day. So we've got a lot more time to deal with those clients, and it's a lot more of a personable approach. Some of the corporates, I've had people, not to kind of name and shame any of the corporates, of course, but I've had people come to me literally 2 weeks after dealing with their corporate that's always done their mortgage, that because they haven't come back to them, and after 2 weeks, 3 weeks of trying to do a mortgage application. And this is the thing with property, there's such an emotional attachment to property. Someone sees a property and they absolutely fall in love with it. They are going to do everything they possibly can to get that property. And I think if you're dealing with a corporate, you're going to get lost in a big pile of other people that are looking to buy property, where I understand that I'm going to be a lot more personable. I'm going to go the extra mile to make sure, and my company is going to go the extra mile to make sure we get it through for you and you get that house.
I can vouch for that. My brother he lives in London, and he was getting his first ever mortgage this year, and the emotional roller coaster he went on, because he went with a big firm, and honestly, I felt for him, because when he finally got it, they delayed it. This and this had happened, and when he finally got it, like you were saying, it was an emotional roller coaster.
They say that and marriage are the two, and having children, they're the 3 most stressful things you can ever do. It's one of those.
I couldn't agree more. In terms of advertising, because I always see, like quite regularly, I will see GW Mortgage advertisements. So I'm thinking, okay, George is doing his job. So what was your advertising plan? So when you got into it, because obviously in things like mortgage advising and housing, things like that, advertisement's king, because that's how you attract your customers.
So this is where I want to go more now. So this is why I'm hiring staff and looking at different options, because my social media presence is okay. I've got a really good website and things like that, but I think my social media presence could be a lot better. I'm looking at competitors and thinking what they're doing and taking ideas from them. But 80, 90 potentially % of my leads come from estate agents. So like I say, I'm affiliated. So I've got 11 different agents now who pass me leads. So very, very thankful for that. But I need to be looking at other ways to get campaigns, whether that be through pay-per-click on different advertising campaigns, or Google and whatever, swipe ups on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it might be. So that's what I'm looking into now. In fact, I've got a meeting later today about that, because I want to kind of grow it as much as I can. But I'm currently on Instagram, LinkedIn and Facebook, and we do 3 posts a week. The issue is with the mortgage market, gaining a following, keeping everyone interested as much as we can. I find mortgages are really interesting, but I might be a little bit boring. I don't think everyone does. So I don't know if everyone's going to be kind of engaging as much, but we try and keep it as fresh as we can. We'll do posts relating to what's going on in the economy and how that's going to affect the mortgage market and the property market and things like that, and just keep it as fresh as we can, really.
That's it, isn't it? Keeping people engaged, keeping people interested, in that. Also, as well, what I've noticed with yours, probably because I'm from the area and I've got a lot of friends that know you, is word of mouth spreads a bit. So
Absolutely.
you see a lot of people sharing the posts and things like that. And I think that's the big, like, if you get referred to something by a friend who's been there, that's a big sort of advertisement, because you think, okay, I'll give it a go.
Yeah, I've just done a refer a friend campaign, actually. So you receive some money on completion if you were to refer a friend, and it's quite overwhelmed with the amount of shares. I don't know if everyone just wants the money, which is probably what it is, but I must have had about 25, 30 shares, and I had 3 mortgage appointments off the back of that as well. So it's like a 10% conversion, which
that's great. That's engagement. That's absolutely great. So going into now, we're almost, I think, a couple months into next year will be year 1. Yeah. So will be year 1 completely. So what was your expectation going in? Have you exceeded that? Are you on the way to that? So what's that looking like?
Exceeded it, actually. Yeah, it's been, like I say, quite overwhelming. I really, really didn't expect to be at this point right now, hiring staff and things like that. I thought the first year I'd find my feet just run it out my living room, really, and kind of go from there and see where I go. And then in year 2, I was going to start hiring 1, maybe 2 members of staff, but I'm in Q4 of year 1. I've already hired 2 members of staff, and I'll be looking for a fourth addition to the team in January next year. So, definitely exceeded where I wanted to be, and like I say, very thankful for the incentives that have come from the government to help fund the property market. Whether that's going to be ongoing for much longer, who knows? Obviously 31st of March, that's when the stamp duty cuts are going to be made, so I think the property market might see a little bit of a tumble off the back of that. No one knows exactly what will happen, but I've just got to ride the wave as much as I can, and you can only go day to day. I get a lot of people asking me, is the property market going to crash? Should I buy now? Is now a good time? Anyone in the industry, if they say yes or no, would be lying to you, because we know as much as you. Exactly. But all I would say is it is still a great time to be buying property. Interest rates are very low and things like that, and all the incentives, and that's allowed my business to thrive, thankfully, in the first year. So I've been really thankful for that.
So have you got now targets? So have you got like a year 2 target or 3 to 5 year target? Have you set that, or was this year kind of, let's see what happens, and then now you're reformulating?
Yeah, it very much was that this year, because I would have gone into this year with, I like my figures, my reporting and things like that, from being a branch manager and reporting to directors and things like that. And I still report to myself every week, every month. I'll still do where I'm at, where the leads have come from and things like that. But this year was kind of like, okay, let's just roll with it and let's see how it goes over the next, because obviously I set it up in April. So, let's kind of see how it goes from there over the next 6 to 8 months. And then we'll take it from there. Now I know kind of where I'm at, and I've managed to kind of build a bit of a name for myself and got some money coming in. I think over the next 2 to 3 years, I'd like to get myself up to a minimum of 5 staff, but 5 actual fee earning staff that are bringing money into the business. So 5 of the brokers. And then after the 2 years, I'd like to get myself a premises. So next year would be great to get myself a premises, but again, we're in uncertain times, so I'm not going to be selling myself short. But a premises for me is quite important. I'd like to secure an office and kind of grow it from there, really. But I'm concentrating on the mortgage side for now. I've got a keen interest in the property investment market as well. So I think that's a way that I will go eventually. So whether that's growing my own portfolio or helping clients to build their portfolio and looking at development opportunities. But, and like I say, I'm quite thankful in the industry that I'm in. I've met a lot of people along the way in different sides of the
sides of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting times, really. Like I say, this year kind of was very much roll with the punches, but I've got a bit of a strategy over the next couple of years to grow it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of, you mentioned there, you're talking about hiring. So what's your hiring criteria? Because for me, I've had to, over the last couple of years, I've had to really rethink my criteria. Like say before, it used to just be you'd be looking for university graduates, but then I did a little bit, because last year was the time I tweaked it a little bit. Did a little survey, and possibly my best staff, the most reliable staff, are people who have come in and have developed with me that necessarily don't have the formal education of of that. What's when you're looking to hire a staff, what are you looking at?
That's a good point, because when I've worked in agencies, going back to like the corporate example, you'd get someone come in from a corporate and they think their way is the way to do business, and they're that, I don't want to say brainwashed, but that's kind of the way they want to do it. Sometimes if you take someone on the journey the whole way, that is a better member of staff, and obviously it's going to be biased because that's the way you like to do things. That's the way the business works, and that's the way the model fits. So yeah, I do agree with you on that perspective. The only issue is it's quite a regulated environment in what I'm in, so you need to be a qualified broker. Environment. So if you're coming in as a ready-made broker, I would expect you to have your qualifications. So you'd have to have what's called CMAP. So you've got your CMAP 1, 2, and 3 exams that you need to qualify for. However, I do offer trainee schemes. So just going back to saying about my brother coming on, he's coming on as a trainee. He's going to be doing his exams in the next 12 or 18 months, and he'll become a qualified broker eventually. And that's what happens. I've got a trainee who's been working with me over the last 12 months, since I set up. He's doing his exams now. My brother comes in as a trainee, he qualifies, and that's kind of what I want to do, because I want to bring that young ethos into mortgages. I think there's a lot of older kind of set in their ways mortgage brokers, which is fine. There's plenty of good mortgage brokers out there, but I want to adapt what I've learned in estate agency into mortgages and have that more kind of fresh approach as such. So bringing younger people in and helping them qualify, I think that's kind of the route I want to go into.
Okay, so what's year one taught you? What's year one taught you that, first off, what you didn't know, or what's been confirmed, and what you're going to sort of tweak into going into year two? What have you learned from going out on your own for the first time for the first year?
I would say going into next year, spending more time with whoever's sending you leads is really, really important. For example, I wouldn't say like I've neglected anyone or anything like that, but sometimes leads that are coming in, they're not quite as good. So, you want to make sure all the leads that are coming in are hot leads as such. And I think by spending, because not everyone knows how the mortgage process works. So I need to go in, I need to sit with those estate agents, or they understand it a little bit more. So I think I'll be spending more time in different offices next year. The issue is this year I haven't been able to go and sit in different offices because of COVID. I can't really be moving around. So that's been a bit of an issue, because I think having that presence is quite important. But I think going into next year, to be honest with you, just carry on doing what I've been doing, but with new additions, and just like time management and things like that. Because obviously when I'm introducing staff into the equation, it's not just going to be me.
Talked about diversifying your portfolio. So when you set up, was it with a view of, okay, I'm just going to focus on this one niche to start with? And you mentioned earlier, there's some of the stuff that you might look at perhaps going into later on.
So what, in terms of diversifying the business?
Yeah, either the business or your personal portfolio.
Yeah. So I'd like to go into investment property eventually. I own a property at the moment, so I'd be looking at kind of building my portfolio as much as I possibly can, definitely for kind of future life. But I think with where I want to take GW Property Finance, we do regulator mortgages at the moment. So mortgages, insurance, so life insurance, protection, that sort of thing. Where I really want to take it is into development finance and bridging finance and things like that. And like I say, I'm fortunate I've got some developers that are contacts and things like that. And that's where, so for me, if I can grow the residential side of the business as quickly as I can, have people that are writing business under my name, and then I can go and concentrate on doing the development deals and and things like that. I think that's where I would be looking to go to next, and then after that, maybe look at doing my own property ventures.
Okay, so last couple of questions. So, let's say we do this again in 5 years, so 2025. So we come back and do this again. What are you hoping to then be saying to me? What's the vision for, you know, GW Mortgage? Where do you see yourself by then?
I would hope that this business is kind of almost running itself. I would always want to have involvement in it. I think, like I said, I want to grow my staff and the business as quickly as I can. So I'd have managers and directors and things like that. I'm really wanting to grow it as quickly as possible. Still keep that independent presence. Would never really want to go too corporate. But I think, just being able to kind of allow it to be self-sufficient, so I can look at those other ventures like the development finance and doing my own investment deals and things like that, like we just spoke about. So I mean, that would be the dream. That would be the dream. At the moment, I'm taking it one step at a time. I'm not going to be hasty into rushing into anything. But yeah, in 5 years' time, we were having that conversation. I was talking to you about new ventures that I'm doing with new businesses and things like that. Then that would be ideal. And just to look back and say, well, GW is kind of running itself now would be fantastic. But I know I've got a lot of hard work to do to get there. I'll be taking it one step at a time for now, like I say.
Perfect. Okay, so first off now, tell everyone where they can find you, where you advertise, your website, all that stuff.
Yeah, so website, just www.gwmortgages.co.uk. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You'll be able to find us on all those platforms. Just drop us a DM, send us an email, all the contact details will be on there. You can contact us 7 days a week. You'll be able to literally get an appointment in for pretty much whenever you like. We do remote appointments as well, so Zoom, over the phone. So you don't have to necessarily come in and see us. We can accommodate an appointment late in the evening after work or during your lunch hour, whatever it might be. You'll be able to find us on any of those social media platforms. And like I say, the website, gwmortgages.co.uk, have a browse through that, and you'll be able to do a bit of a mortgage calculator on there and navigate yourself around the different services that we offer as well.